Tyler Mitchell stood outside the glass entrance of his own hotel, hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the simple button-down shirt he'd chosen for this morning. The familiar sight of the Pearl District bustling beyond Tom McCall Waterfront Park should have calmed him. But instead, anxiety churned in his stomach like it had 10 years ago when he was 22 and desperate for his first real job. This wasn't just another business evaluation. This was personal. The Mitchell Hospitality flagship property rose before him, a testament to everything he'd built after being told he didn't fit corporate culture at Nike headquarters. Back then, the HR manager had smiled politely while delivering the rejection, using the same coded language that haunts gay professionals across America. Today, Tyler was testing whether his own company had become what he'd once been excluded from. He pulled open the door and approached the reception desk where David Rodriguez, his 55-year-old HR manager, was setting up for morning interviews. David's weathered face and graying temples gave him an authoritative presence that Tyler had always respected. That respect was about to be tested. Two other candidates waited in the lobby. Victoria Ashford sat perfectly poised in a cream Chanel suit, her blonde hair styled in expensive waves, scrolling through her phone with the casual confidence that comes from never doubting your place in any room. Across from her, Marcus Thompson sat upright in pressed khakis and a navy blazer, his military bearing evident in every line of his posture. The contrast was stark and intentional. David's eyes lit up the moment Victoria approached. His entire demeanor shifted from professional courtesy to something approaching reverence as he took in her designer clothing and confident stride. "Miss Ashford, what an absolute pleasure." David beamed, extending his hand with enthusiasm Tyler had never seen him show other candidates. "That's a beautiful suit if I'm not mistaken." "Chanel," Victoria smiled with practiced grace. "Yes, picked it up during my last trip to Paris. My family has several properties in the hospitality industry, so I understand the importance of presentation." "Wonderful, wonderful. Your family's business empire is quite impressive. I believe your father owns the Ashford Resort chain, with partnerships across the Pacific Northwest." As Victoria detailed her family connections to Timberline Lodge and McMenamin's corporate, Tyler watched David's body language transform. This wasn't an interview, it was a courtship. Every nod, every approving murmur, every comment about understanding luxury clientele expectations painted a clear picture of bias in action. When Marcus approached to introduce himself, the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. David's handshake was perfunctory, his smile strained. "Marcus Thompson, pleased to meet you, sir. I have 12 years of hotel management experience, including 3 years managing the downtown Portland Marriott." David's response was coolly professional. "That's nice, though this position requires different sensibilities than chain hotel management." Tyler's chest tightened as recognition hit him like a physical blow. Those exact words, that dismissive tone, the way David's eyes barely made contact with Marcus while maintaining warm engagement with Victoria. It was Nike all over again. The same systematic exclusion dressed up as business judgment. The memory crashed over him, sitting across from Nike's HR director, Michael Chen, squeezing his hand supportively in the waiting room outside. The carefully worded rejection about corporate culture and client comfort levels. The devastating realization that his qualifications meant nothing when weighed against who he loved. Tyler forced himself to remain calm as David continued the preliminary conversations, but his hands were shaking now for different reasons. This wasn't just about his company's hiring practices anymore. This was about every qualified person who'd been dismissed because they didn't fit someone's narrow vision of acceptability. This was about ensuring that what happened to him would never happen to anyone else on his watch. Today's interview process was about to become something much more significant than any of them realized. The actual interview process began with Victoria, and Tyler watched David's bias unfold with nauseating familiarity. Victoria settled into the conference room like she owned it, crossing her legs elegantly while David practically genuflected in her presence. "Miss Ashford, your background is exactly what we're looking for," David began, not even glancing at her resume. Someone who understands our target demographic, successful, established families visiting Portland for luxury experiences. Victoria's entitled smile widened. Absolutely, Tarshi. During my gap year in Tuscany, I studied hospitality management at several high-end resorts. Daddy always says the key to luxury service is understanding that our clients expect a certain standard. Tyler's stomach turned as David nodded approvingly. The coded language was impossible to miss. When Victoria casually mentioned her family's connections to Columbia River Gorge resorts, David leaned forward with genuine excitement. That's exactly the kind of established network we need. Your understanding of Portland's luxury market is apparent. Someone with your background naturally comprehends what our discerning guests expect. The phrases hit Tyler like physical blows. Established, natural understanding, certain standards. These were the same euphemisms used to exclude him a decade ago, and now he was watching them weaponized in his own company. His mind drifted to that devastating morning at Nike headquarters. 22 years old, fresh out of Portland State University with a business degree and dreams of changing corporate culture. The HR manager had been polite, professional, even apologetic as she explained that while his qualifications were impressive, they needed someone who would be a better cultural fit for their client-facing positions. Michael Chen had been waiting in the parking lot afterward, holding Tyler while he cried against the hood of their beat-up Honda Civic. Michael's quiet fury had matched Tyler's devastation. They can't say it outright anymore. But we both know what that meant. Michael had whispered, "You're too gay for their corporate image." Now, watching David dismiss Marcus with the same systematic precision, Tyler felt that old wound tearing open. Marcus had presented his credentials with quiet dignity, mentioning his military service and management experience, only to be met with David's increasingly cold responses. Military experience is certainly different from hospitality, David had said, the pause loaded with implication. This position requires someone who understands current market dynamics and can relate to our guest demographics. Tyler recognized the pattern emerging. David wasn't just showing preference for Victoria's wealth. He was actively constructing reasons to exclude Marcus that had nothing to do with qualifications. The way David avoided eye contact with Marcus while maintaining warm engagement with Victoria, the subtle shift in his posture, the careful choice of words that sounded professional but carried deeper meaning. It was systematic discrimination disguised as business judgment. The flashback intensified as Tyler remembered the weeks following his Nike rejection. Application after application met with polite rejections or awkward silences. The devastating realization that his resume, his grades, his passion for business meant nothing when hiring managers made unconscious assumptions about his ability to represent their companies. It was Michael who had finally suggested that Tyler stop hiding who he was and instead build something where authenticity was valued. Create the company you wish had existed when you graduated, Michael had said during one of their late-night conversations in their cramped studio apartment. That conversation had planted the seed that eventually became Mitchell Hospitality. Tyler had built his company with a specific mission: prove that talent transcends demographics, that diversity strengthens businesses rather than threatening them, that Portland's progressive values could translate into corporate leadership rather than just political rhetoric. But sitting in this conference room, watching his own HR manager perpetuate the same biases that had nearly broken him, Tyler realized how naive he'd been. Good intentions weren't enough. Company policies weren't enough. Real change required constant vigilance and, when necessary, dramatic intervention. David was wrapping up Victoria's interview with obvious satisfaction, already speaking as if her hiring was a foregone conclusion. The casual dismissal of Marcus's qualifications, the way David's enthusiasm had drained whenever Marcus spoke, the subtle but unmistakable message that some people simply didn't belong in certain spaces, it was all horrifyingly familiar. Tyler's decision crystallized in that moment. This wasn't about catching an employee making mistakes. This was about confronting a system that had wounded him and continued to wound others. Today would be the day he finally fought back. Marcus Thompson's interview began with the dignity of a man who had faced dismissal before, but refused to let it diminish his worth. Tyler watched him enter the conference room with military precision, his posture straight despite the obvious tension in David's body language. "Mr. Thompson," David began with barely concealed impatience. "Let's keep this brief. As I mentioned earlier, this position has very specific requirements." Marcus remained composed, his hands folded calmly in his lap. "I understand, sir. I'd like to discuss my experience managing diverse teams during my 3 years at the Portland Marriott. We increased customer satisfaction ratings by 23% and implemented several successful diversity initiatives." David interrupted with a dismissive wave. "That's admirable, but chain hotel management operates very differently from boutique luxury service. Our guests expect traditional service standards, if you understand my meaning." The phrase hung in the air like a challenge. Tyler felt his heart rate spike as David continued weaving the same web of coded exclusion he'd experienced years ago. Traditional standards, cultural fit, guest expectations. Each phrase was a carefully constructed barrier designed to exclude without explicitly discriminating. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. "With respect, Mr. Rodriguez, what specific qualifications make traditional values relevant to hospitality management? My military service taught me discipline, leadership, and grace under pressure. My hotel experience included managing staff during peak seasons and handling complex guest relations." David's discomfort was visible now, his professional mask slipping slightly. "Look, this isn't personal, but our establishment serves a particular clientele: families, business professionals, established community members who expect certain wholesome service standards." Tyler's hands clenched involuntarily as the familiar words crashed over him. Wholesome, established community, family-oriented. These were the same euphemisms that had destroyed his confidence 10 years ago. The polite language that masked ugly prejudices. The Nike interview flashed through his memory with brutal clarity. The HR manager's practiced smile as she explained their need for employees who could relate to their corporate clients. The way her enthusiasm had died when Tyler mentioned Michael during casual conversation. The sudden shift from promising candidate to cultural risk. All because loving another man somehow made him unsuitable for selling athletic equipment. Marcus pressed forward with quiet determination. "Sir, I've managed teams of over 50 people, including during combat deployments in Afghanistan. I've handled life and death situations while maintaining operational excellence. Hotel guest relations, even at the luxury level, my boss, seems well within my capabilities." David's response revealed the depth of his bias. Military experience is different from hospitality. We need someone who naturally understands our market demographic and can provide the kind of service our guests associate with the quality establishments. The dismissal in David's tone was unmistakable now. Tyler recognized the systematic erosion of Marcus's qualifications. The way each achievement was reframed as somehow inadequate for this particular position. It was the same process that had convinced Tyler, for years, that maybe he really wasn't right for corporate America. But Marcus wasn't backing down. His military bearing became more pronounced as he leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Rodriguez, are you suggesting that my service to this country somehow disqualifies me from serving hotel guests? Because I'd like to understand the connection between military leadership experience and my ability to manage hospitality operations." The directness of the challenge caught David off guard. His face flushed slightly as he scrambled for professional-sounding justifications. "It's not about your service. It's about fit. This position requires someone who can seamlessly integrate with our existing culture and understand our guest expectations without extensive guidance." Tyler's breaking point arrived with crystalline clarity. The word fit, that damning elastic concept used to justify every exclusion, every missed opportunity, every qualified person turned away because they didn't match someone's narrow vision of belonging. He thought of Michael, probably reviewing engineering specifications at Intel right now. unaware that his partner was reliving their shared trauma in real time. Michael had supported Tyler through every rejection, every moment of self-doubt. Every night, Tyler had wondered if maybe he should just hide who he was to make his professional life easier. "You have the power now," Michael had said during Tyler's darkest period. "When you get that power, it's it for people who don't have it yet." Marcus was still fighting, his voice gaining strength despite David's obvious desire to end the interview. "Sir, I'd like to specifically address your concerns about my qualifications. I have advanced degrees in hospitality management, extensive customer service training, and leadership experience in high-pressure situations. If there are specific skills you feel I lack, I'd appreciate the opportunity to address them directly." David's patience had clearly evaporated. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate your time, but frankly, this position requires someone with a different background and approach to service. Someone who naturally embodies the values our guests associate with quality hospitality." The conversation had crossed from bias into outright discrimination. Tyler could see Marcus processing the rejection, the familiar resignation of someone who had faced this dismissal before. But there was something else in Marcus's eyes too, a quiet determination that Tyler recognized from his own mirror during the hardest moments of building his company. Tyler made his decision. The time for silent observation had ended. Tyler stood up from his observer's chair, his movement cutting through the tense atmosphere like a blade. David's head snapped toward him, confusion replacing his dismissive confidence as Tyler walked deliberately to the front of the room. "Actually, Mr. Rodriguez, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about qualifications and company values." David blinked rapidly, his processed mind struggling to place Tyler in a context that made sense. "I'm sorry, but who are you exactly? We're conducting private interviews here." Tyler's voice carried quiet authority as he faced both David and Victoria, who had been summoned back to witness what David assumed would be a routine hiring decision. "I'm Tyler Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Hospitality, and I've been conducting an evaluation of our hiring practices." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face went through a rapid succession of emotions: confusion, disbelief, then dawning mortification as she realized her entitled performance had been witnessed by the company's owner. David's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his carefully constructed professional facade crumbling. "That's impossible," Victoria stammered. "You're just another candidate. You can't be the CEO." Tyler's response was gentle but firm. "I understand your confusion, Victoria, but appearances can be deceiving, which is exactly the lesson we're all learning today." He turned to face David directly, his composure masking the emotional storm beneath. 10 years ago, I was sitting where Marcus is now, 22 years old, fresh out of Portland State, interviewing for my dream job at Nike headquarters. The HR manager used the exact same language you just used: cultural fit, traditional values, guest expectations, wholesome standards. Tyler's voice remained steady, but David could see his hands trembling slightly. "I was rejected not because of my qualifications, but because I would die. Because someone decided that loving another man somehow made me unsuitable for corporate representation." The words hung heavy in the room. Marcus straightened in his chair, recognition and solidarity flickering across his features. Victoria looked desperately uncomfortable. Her earlier confidence completely evaporated. "Mr. Mitchell, I had no idea," David began, but Tyler continued. "I built this company specifically to prove that talent has no sexual orientation, no skin color, no economic background. I created Mitchell Hospitality because I wanted Portland to lead on equality, not just talk about it." Tyler's voice gained strength as he spoke. "But today, I've watched you systematically exclude a qualified candidate using the same coded language that was used against me." Tyler turned toward Marcus with evident respect. "Marcus, would you mind sharing something about yourself that Mr. Rodriguez didn't bother to learn during his interview?" Marcus met Tyler's gaze with quiet dignity. "I'm gay, Mr. Mitchell. I was discharged from the military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell 15 years ago, despite exemplary service records and commendations for leadership under fire. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. David's face went pale as he realized the full scope of his discrimination. He hadn't just shown bias against a qualified candidate. He had systematically excluded someone facing the same intersectional challenges that had shaped Tyler's entire professional mission. 15 years of proving my worth in spite of people's assumptions. Marcus continued, his voice gaining power. Military service, hotel management, community leadership, none of it mattered because someone decided I didn't fit their vision of who belongs in hospitality. Tyler felt the emotional weight of shared experience, connecting him to Marcus across the room. Two gay men from different backgrounds, different generations, united by the familiar sting of qualified rejection. This is exactly why representation matters, Tyler said, addressing David directly. This isn't just about hiring policies or legal compliance. This is about recognizing that diversity of experience strengthens our team, that different perspectives enhance our service, that Portland's progressive values mean nothing if we don't practice them in our own businesses. David attempted damage control, his voice shaky. Mr. Mitchell, I sincerely apologize. I had no intention of discriminating. I was simply trying to find the best fit for our company culture. Company culture, Tyler repeated, the phrase heavy with irony. The same justification used to exclude anyone who doesn't match someone's narrow definition of acceptable. David, you violated every principle of fair hiring and basic human dignity. Victoria, who had been silent throughout the revelation, finally spoke up. This is ridiculous. I was obviously the most qualified candidate. My family's connections, my background, my understanding of luxury service, none of that changes because of your personal agenda. Tyler turned to her with patience he didn't feel. Victoria, your sense of entitlement is exactly why you're not right for this position. Leadership requires empathy, respect, and the ability to see potential in people regardless of their demographics. You've demonstrated none of those qualities. The room fell silent as the full implications settled. David's career was ending. Victoria's assumptions were crumbling. Marcus was finally being seen for his true worth, and Tyler was reclaiming the power that had been denied to him years ago, not for revenge, but for justice. The consequences of the morning's revelations unfolded with swift precision. Tyler's voice remained calm but carried unmistakable authority as he addressed each person in the room with the gravity their actions deserved. David, your employment with Mitchell Hospitality is terminated effective immediately. You violated our core principles of fair hiring and demonstrated exactly the kind of systemic bias that prevents qualified people from reaching their potential. David's face crumpled as the reality hit him. Mr. Mitchell, please. I've been with this company for 3 years. I made a mistake, but I can learn from this experience. Tyler shook his head slowly. This wasn't a mistake, David, and this was a pattern of judgment that excluded qualified candidates based on your personal assumptions about who deserves opportunity. That's not something you learn from. That's something that disqualifies you from making hiring decisions. He turned to Victoria, whose entitled facade had completely dissolved. Victoria, your application is rejected, not because of your family's wealth, but because leadership in hospitality requires qualities you've shown you lack: respect for others, recognition of merit over privilege, and basic human decency. Victoria's voice rose with indignation. You can't seriously be choosing him over me. My family has connections throughout the Pacific Northwest hospitality industry. We can bring business relationships you'll never access otherwise. Exactly, wow, Tyler replied quietly. You see relationships as transactions, people as connections to exploit. That's the opposite of what hospitality means. He faced Marcus with genuine respect and anticipation. Marcus, I'd like to offer you this position, but more than that, I'd like to discuss developing an inclusive hiring program that ensures what happened here today never happens again in our organization. Marcus's military composure finally cracked slightly, emotion flickering across his features. Mitchell, I'd be deeply honored to accept both the position and the opportunity to help build something meaningful. Tyler felt the weight of transformation settling into the room. This moment represented more than a hiring decision. It was the culmination of years of building towards systematic change. There's more, Tyler continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. Mitchell Hospitality is announcing a partnership with the Oregon Equality and Human Rights Commission to audit our hiring practices annually. We're launching an apprenticeship program specifically for LGBTQ veterans who were discharged under discriminatory policies. And we're becoming a model for inclusive hiring practices that other Portland businesses can learn from. Marcus straightened with evident pride. Sir, I'd like to help design training programs that could be implemented throughout the hospitality industry statewide. If we can change how one industry approaches inclusion, we can influence others. Tyler smiled genuinely for the first time that morning. That's exactly the kind of systemic thinking we need. He pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. Michael, it's me. We did it. We actually changed something today. The conversation was brief, but Tyler's voice carried unmistakable joy. Marcus Thompson is our new manager, and he's going to help us transform hiring practices across the state. I'll tell you everything tonight. Michael Chen's pride was audible even to those nearby. I'm so proud of you. Tyler, you didn't just hire someone qualified who happens to be gay. You changed the system that tried to exclude both of you. As David gathered his belongings and Victoria stormed out in frustrated defeat, Tyler and Marcus found themselves alone in the conference room that had witnessed such transformation. 10 years ago, I thought my career was over before it started, Tyler said quietly. Today, or should we say, we're ensuring that qualified people never face that same exclusion again. Marcus nodded with deep understanding. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is use our positions to open doors that were closed to us. Tyler looked out the conference room window toward the Pearl District, bustling with Portland's progressive energy. This is what equality actually looks like, not just policies on paper, but real systemic change that creates opportunity for everyone based on merit rather than assumptions. The hotel would host Basic Rights Oregon events. Marcus would develop training programs for hospitality businesses throughout Oregon. Mitchell Hospitality would become a statewide model for inclusive hiring. But most importantly, qualified people would never again face the systematic exclusion that had nearly ended Tyler's career before it began. In Portland's progressive landscape, they were proving that authentic equality requires more than good intentions. It demands the courage to confront bias wherever it exists and the commitment to build systems that recognize human potential, regardless of demographics. Have you ever watched someone's qualifications be dismissed because of who they are rather than what they can contribute? True change happens when those with power choose to use it for justice rather than comfort. Subscribe to Heart Stories, where every voice matters and every story reminds us that equality is not just an ideal, but an action we choose every day.